Hello and welcome to Kaleidoscope, the podcast series 4, all about me and chemotherapy. Not our usual um, blog, podcast, whatever you want to call it. Um, Hopefully, the last one in this series, please God and the goddesses. And I know it's been a long time coming. I think in the last one I told you that I was going for a scan on the 8th of June and I was going to Mid Ulster for some reason. Um, Maybe shows how busy they are because normally they get me into Antrim. And then I didn't hear from them for a long time until I was getting the consultant's secretary rang me to see could I do an appointment on the 7th of July, which I could. And she offered me a phone call. So the fact that I was going to Mid Ulster, the fact that it took them 4 weeks to tell me my results, and I was getting a phone call, to me, that was all good news. Kind of after 11 years, you kind of get the gauge how this, if you're brought in to see the consultant, kind of within the fortnight or the fortnight, you know it's not going to be great. If you're getting a phone call 4 weeks after, unless it's holiday times like Christmas, it can take 4 weeks anyway, just because people are off on annual leave, etc. Um, and when I answered the phone, it was a clinical nurse specialist. So even better news because it would be a consultant if it wasn't going to be good news. So apparently not apparently, I have had the report and I read through the report. All the tumours have now shrunk. Not significantly, but they have shrunk, which is great. And the better news from my perspective is that I feel better. So this was always the thing. This was the thing that my own clinical nurse specialist had said, not my own, she's not my personal, but the clinical nurse specialist that rang me on the 7th of July was just a general clinical nurse specialist. The named clinical nurse specialist that looks after me is probably as well as 100 other people. Um, what she had said to me October last year was the best we could hope for at this stage was to knock back the symptoms. They seem to have knocked back the symptoms. Now, that doesn't mean I don't have bad days. It doesn't mean that I don't do something and it hurts or whatever. I don't, sometimes you walk too much. Like, as some of you know, if you follow me on Facebook, I was in London for a couple of days last week or the week before, and our flight home got cancelled one of the days, and the next day it was delayed. And I was in a lot of pain in those times. One, because we've done a lot of walking. You'd be surprised how much walking there is in an airport just to get to, particularly when you're in London, to get to the train station, to get from the train station into departure lounge through security, so on and so forth. And I wear my lanyard, and they're very good because they put in like fast lanes for people like me, disabled people. And sometimes like families, if they're particularly if there's a mother with a couple of toddlers on her own, they'll put them through the fast lane. So it's all made as easy. And this time Stephen and I did taxis rather than the tube or any of the rest, because I just, well, one, you recommended not to do the tube in that kind of heat anyway. But equally, I just couldn't manage it up and down stairs, and not every tube station has escalators or a lift or whatever. So we were doing taxis, but even with that, with taxis and trains and getting to, there's a lot of walking. And then when you're there, our flight should have left at 7:20, and we ended up getting to a hotel and into a hotel room and into bed at about 1 o'clock in the morning. So that was a lot of hanging around in seats that are not really designed for you to be hanging around for that length of time. So days like that where there was a lot of walking, a lot of sitting, a lot of, those are days where I heavily medicate. Those are paracetamol and codeine type days. So it's not that my symptoms have been knocked back completely, but compared to where I was, even October, November, December, January time, I am, well, put it like this, like as I've said to other people, I would not have taken the chemotherapy at all if my quality of life had been there. But since I took ill on the 22nd of July last year and I ended up in hospital with what they think afterwards with the with the results of the CT scan and the ultrasound and so on and so forth was a torsion. They think in the end, really can't tell. Um, this is the best I have been, really and truly. Uh, still not fabulous. Still not fabulous. Well, no, I am absolutely fabulous. But fitness wise, health wise, the ability to do a day's work or to walk any distance or whatever is still not there. But it is improving and it is a lot better than it was, as I say, from July right through to when I started chemo and through the chemo. So great news. Tumours have shrunk and more importantly, I'm feeling better. So this is kind of the last podcast, as I say, please God. And the only reason I would say that is because granulosa cell tumours, once you've got them, they're kind of recurring. And it's not to say that in a year's time, 2 years' time, 5 years' time, I won't, I might become as ill as I did this time last year. And then I might consider having chemo again. But for now, chemo's finished. The tumours have shrunk. I'm doing the best I can to live the best life I can. It's a little bit more restricted than it used to be. It's a little bit smaller. It's a little bit less in some way, less walking, less energy, less adventures. And adventures are spaced apart. And there's a building up to. There's a friend of mine wants to take me to the Hill of Tara. And so it's about being in the car for longer and longer journeys and walking a little bit further this week than I did last week, etc., etc., etc. Hence the Fitbit back on because I'm trying to get to a certain amount of steps every day for a certain length of time before then I up it again and I up it again. And that's going to be a slow process because the energy isn't there, and the energy isn't there because chemotherapy kind of wrecks the mitochondria. So mitochondria are like sort of like an H or an X type shape. On the thing on the end of the X or the H is telomeres. And if you've got big long telomeres, you have a lot of life and a lot of energy. And if you've got wee short telomeres, you don't have a lot of life or a lot of energy. And chemotherapy kind of wrecks those telomeres. So it's about trying to do all the good things, all the rainbow colored vegetables on your plate, and doing a little physical activity creates energy. So doing a little bit more each day without and knowing the difference between when I'm done and when I can push a little bit more so that the resilience builds up and the energy builds up and the resistance builds up and so on and so forth. And that can be a fine line because sometimes when I'm done, I know I'm done. There would be times, it sounds ridiculous, done. But that's the kind of thing that Stephen would say to me. We would go shopping or whatever, and I go, I'm done. And he'll go, are you done, or are you coffee done? Because coffee done means we'll sit down, I'll have a cup of coffee, I'll catch my breath, I'll get a bit of energy back, and we can go again for another, not very long, but for another hour, whatever. And so that's where it's, am I done, or am I coffee done? But usually by the time I realize I'm done, Stephen can see it in me and knows it's coming. So I said to him, well, in future, instead of me larging on and going for another 5 or 10 minutes, because trust me, that's all it is, another 5 or 10 minutes, why don't we have a shorthand where you say to me, Duracell Bunny? Because that's what I said to the clinical nurse specialist. When it comes to fatigue, it's like somebody sneaks up behind me and just takes the battery out. And that's what I mean. It's like I'm done at that point. There is nothing left to give. I can just about make it back to the car. Um, and sometimes it's a case of Stephen leaving me somewhere, taking me to the closest seat that he can get me to, going and bringing the car closer, and then coming to get me. Um, but I am doing that sounds oh woe was me and all the rest, and it's not. I am doing more than I was. I'm doing more, but it is that thing as well. I think when you start to feel better, you think you can do. You think, oh, I'm back to normal, average, whatever you want to say, whatever you want to call it. And I can do, and you can't. And you go out, I have plans. I lie in bed either at night before I go to sleep or in the morning thinking, I'll get up in the morning and I will do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. And I'd be lucky if I get A and B when I get up the next day, just because of the energy levels. So it's the soul is willing, the mind is still very active, the body just doesn't have it yet. But it's coming. It's coming. I'm doing more, I think, almost every day than I did the day before. But like I say, there are some days where it's just not there. And I have to sit on the sofa and do very little, or I do a little bit and then I have to stop. And yes, frustrating. Very, very frustrating. When the soul is willing and the mind is still active, the body not being able to keep up in the same way is very frustrating. However, it's all going in the right way. And it's a case of working with what we've got until we've got more. So there you go. All good news. And as I say, hopefully this episode, which is episode 9, which is a very, very appropriate then for this to be the final episode in series 4. Now, what happened to series 5? I don't actually know because again, if you follow me on Facebook and so on and so forth, I kind of had to let my business go a bit this year. One at the very beginning, between January to the middle of March, end of March, I was self-isolating because so many people had so many viruses that I just didn't want to be out mixing in public and stuff. So I wasn't working. And a lot of the times I didn't feel like it. I didn't have the energy and I didn't feel well enough. I suppose I could have done some healing circles online, but I really wasn't. It just wasn't there for me. The energy, the interest, the desire, the push, the drive to do it just wasn't there. Um, I am back to work, but because I haven't been there working with clients, they've all moved on to other um therapists, etc. Not all of them, not all of them. The vast majority of my healing circle ladies are still there, but my one-to-one clients are not. And so I'm working with a business mentor to try and get my business back up and running. And there might be a little bit of paring back on what I have been doing to get the business back to where I would like it to be. Before I'm, you know, previously I was doing healing circles, one-to-one work, out doing the EFT tapping and stuff in the trust and businesses, etc. I was doing a retreat, I was doing a podcast, I was doing the blogs, I was doing emails and so on and so forth. And I might just have to pare all that back to a couple of absolute essentials until I really get them going again properly with the limited energy. As I build my energy, I will be building the business again. So I don't actually know unless I have an absolute influx of people who really want to tell their stories and talk about the tools that they use to help themselves stay feeling like themselves. The podcast might have to go for a little while, just until I build my energy back up again. But we'll see. Who knows? By September, I could be ready to round to go with a whole list of people and a whole lot of interviews to do. That would be lovely. That actually would be ideal if people were willing and interested and contacted me to say, "Can we be on your podcast?" That would be fantastic. But in the meantime, this is the end of the podcast for now. Well, definitely the end of series 4 for now, unless, like I say, in a year's time, 2 years' time, 3 years, 5 years, whatever, we have to go again with chemotherapy. and we'll see what happens with the rest of the podcast as we go forward. Thank you so much for your interest. I hope somebody has got something out of this that they needed for their journey, for somebody belonging to them's journey. The journey is hard on us, the people that have the disease. It is hard on us. It's hard on our loved ones because they don't know how we feel. They can't feel that actually I know everything's going to be okay. They can't feel that, so they're just worried, and it's very hard on them. So hopefully, somebody somewhere has got something out of this little podcast vlog thing of mine that will help them. In the meantime, I wish you good emotional well-being, and you know where I am if you need me. Take care now. Bye.